So my name is John Clarkson and I'm an environmental consultant who's worked with British Gas plc, University of Plymouth and Ocean Housing. So I've been looking at the Kensal Canal-side project, or Project Flourish, and I believe that it should be stopped. My belief comes from the fact that air pollution from old industrial sites are a problem to locals because, unlike vehicles, they emit 24/7. So I'm just going to go through now with you the history of the Kensal Gasworks, the pollution and the potential impact on humans. So in 1844 the Gas, Light and Coke Company Works built a gasworks, built it on the eastern side, and that's something to note. So it's important that the environmental health are concerned about what is underneath that part of the site and not necessarily what is under the other side where St William are, formerly known as Berkeley St William, who seem to have gone around the UK buying up a lot of the old southern gasworks sites. So Project Flourish will be built on toxic waste. Well, actually it won't, because you can't build legally on a toxic waste dump. You have to carry out some kind of remedial work, and that means firstly testing these areas, and that should be done by professionals and independents, and at the same time you have to then remove that, and you need a plan to do it properly. So let's travel back in time to find out why we've got all this toxicity in the ground. So in the 1840s, coal gas was made by burning shale. They called it canal gas originally because it came from shale rather than coal. But then they switched over to coal to coke and then to gas because that was a lot cheaper. Either way, the Victorian industrial plants operated with little or no regulations, and so when they did this they had a lot of leftovers, including toxic tar. The way that this is done is actually quite simple. You burn coal in an oxygen-free environment in something called a retort, and it gives off gas, and the byproduct is the coal tar. So in the 1970s this particular site was shut down, mainly because North Sea gas had come on tap and was a lot cheaper, and so they moved on to just the storage facilities. So the processes to manufacture this gas and their toxic waste back in the day left over these toxins, which were benzene, naphthalene and phenols. There are other things as well, but nevertheless they tended to choose to actually bury them and dump them on site because they're of little economic value to smaller plants such as Kensal. And the Victorian Gasworks engineers simply dug out the tar pits and the tar baths and dumped this material and then forgot all about it. And likewise they did the same with their purifier waste, which they used to purify the gas. So you ended up with this kind of purifier waste that was like 50% sulfur and 6% cyanide. So the solution to these problems is to carry out remedial work. It's highly regulated, but sadly you have to use lots of chemicals which often themselves will give off poisons and contaminate the air, and then when they react with the coal tar and the other things there, that will also give off toxins. And there's a chance that those might break the Environmental Protection Act regulations, which are not really very well designed for dealing with something like this, because they deal with something called statutory nuisance, and that's not really a very good measure of something of this nature. So the Southall site is probably the one that everyone knows about. Public Health England have been involved with it, as has a scientist from Imperial College, And so people have started to complain about the smell. And where they didn't complain about the smell, they complained about getting asthma, and cancer rates seem to get higher. Whether that's the case or not is hard to tell. Regardless of that, an initial report by Roy M. Harrison on another site in Brighton, also owned by Barclays St William, who also owns the Southall one, concluded that obviously these are not safe places to actually develop, because there are no totally safe levels of the compounds that are emitted from these gases. And we know that these gases are very, very dangerous, even in small amounts, especially if they're done over 6, 7 months or 12 months or however long it takes. So this is somewhere you don't want to be living close to during that time. So the problem is that even places you think are safe are not safe, because in the past people have built over coal tar waste pits. For example, in that top picture you can see one, and you can see there's another one there where previous builders have simply built over the top of them. And that means that you're unearthing all this stuff and it's just going everywhere. So it's very, very dangerous and very toxic. And it spreads out over about a 5-kilometre area generally, and it obviously goes further than that. So who plays to clean up these sites? Well, is it those who caused it? Sadly not. Is it those who own it? 83% of the time it isn't. It's generally the council taxpayers. And it's the Kensington and Chelsea taxpayers who will probably end up paying vast sums to help Ballimore and Sainsbury's get rich, which is definitely not what I would consider social justice. Remedial work is done by diggers. They generally dig down and they then hit this coal tar and purifier sediments, and they also hit the coal tar tanks effectively, and then the pollution starts to pour out, and before long the local environment is suffering from quite dense gases. And what I mean by that is they tend to sink, and that can cause cancer, confusion and cataracts. So if you don't want cancer, confusion and cataracts in your area, this is a very good moment to say something and for the environmental health to act and stop this project completely. So what will your children end up breathing in? Remember, a child takes in 3 times what an adult does. Well, it'll be benzene, which is linked to blood cancer, naphthalene, PAHs, polyaromatic hydrocarbons, which are associated with lung, skin and bladder cancers, phenols, which have a whole range of things, and toluene, which is probably the one that might be the worst for the asthmatics, although the benzene and the naphthalene could also do that, and the phenols. We can't say for certain about asthma, because asthma is a multi-cause disease often. And so it's very, very hard to pin it down on that one. But these ones we have very, very good evidence for. So where will the toxins blow? Well, the prevailing winds are from the west, so they'll blow to the east of the site. The prevailing winds are from the southwest, and they'll blow to the northeast of the site, as you can see on the diagram down to the left. And when the wind stops, the gas will simply pour out and slowly fill the area. If you can imagine a November day when there's hardly any wind and a fog, this is all that will be in the air. Along with the fog is the car pollution and this extra pollution from this particular site. So a study in 1988 by Bolton, Morrison, Resetar and Wolfe, who were the leading scientists of the day in this particular field of interest, concluded it was uncertain as to whether these sites posed a risk to human health. The study analysed 1 kilometre to 5 kilometre distances. The reason was the lack of studies on the subject. And so this is why Dr. Ian Mudway, who is currently taking blood samples in London regarding this matter, and also I believe in Brighton, believes that we need to adopt the precautionary principle. The precautionary principle implies there is a social responsibility to protect the public from exposure to such harm when scientific investigation has found a plausible risk, even if not proven. And that is something that often councillors don't realise, that it is part of their local Agenda 21, and it's also part of their environmental policies. They need to apply it not only to climate change, but to every facet of pollution, including this kind of pollution from developments. And it's not merely a matter of saying, oh well, that only applies to carbon emissions. It doesn't, I can assure you. So to conclude, remedial work causes pollution and will raise council taxes. This might breach the Environmental Protection Act. A similar site in Chesterfield took 7 years to merely plan the remedial work, not mind about carry it out. And if this is not stopped, the whole area for 1 to 5 kilometres will be twice as toxic, with potentially similar problems as in Southall, which I'm sure, given the situation that Kensington has found itself in the past in regarding a particular fire that happened several years ago, they would wish to avoid. And the latest study on pollution has concluded that children will carry pollution forward in their lives. So if you start polluting them now, and you pollute them for 6 or 7 months, or you pollute them for 12 months, or 2 years, or 3 years, or 10 years, they're going to carry that into their adult life, and that's going to put them at further risk of diseases. And that's the end of my presentation. If you wish to contact me, please do so. Thank you.